and welcome back to the Sport Rundown Bet Along. It's not actually a Bet Along tonight, it's the Euro 2020 preview show. How's everybody getting on this evening?
Yeah, good, Abby. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, good. Looking forward to this now. We've been talking about the Euros for a bit of time, but they've kind of come around nice and fast. So a lot of action to get through tonight, a lot of games to talk about. So before we dive in, any thoughts on the competition or anything you're looking forward to in particular, or just kind of waiting to see how it plays out?
Yeah, it's kind of crept up on me a small bit. So, Joe, usually you're looking forward to these tournaments from a good bit out. But this year, I don't know whether it's just because it's out of sync or not. It hasn't had the same feel to it. But now that all of the kind of the major leagues in Europe are over, starting to kind of get excited by it. Obviously getting used to the new layout and things like that. But yeah, excited for it now. What about you?
Yeah, I suppose it's different than any tournament that's come before it. So, I don't know what you think of the fact that it's not based in one country or a kind of a two-country combo the way it has been historically. I'm not mad on the idea, but I suppose it's interesting at least that it's different than anything that's come before. So, from a betting perspective, it kind of throws things up in the air a bit.
Yeah, I didn't like it when it was announced. I kind of thought, they're just tinkering with this now just for the sake of it, and it's money and all that kind of. But now that you're looking at it, and like obviously we talked about it, over the last few weeks, and we'll talk about it on the show how certain teams have the home advantage. It certainly adds a lot to the equation. So it's interesting. I just wonder from a fan point of view, because there's not going to be as many fans out and about because of the pandemic and all that. Maybe it's not such a big impact. But I think in a normal year, I think it'd be a kind of a bad buzz almost. That you're only going to see 2 or 3 games in your city, and then it's just gone again. Say Rome is going to have 3 Italian matches, and then that's pretty much the end of it for them.
The host nation, there's always such a buzz around it, and the fans are in such good spirits because everyone's kind of come together to one location. I
was going to say that to you, Slats. Remember when we were in Poland in 2012, and you were just meeting it wasn't just like, I think it was Ireland, Croatia, Spain, and Italy, but it wasn't just those 4 sets of fans. Like, we met some English fans, we met some fans of other countries along the way. Joe, you're all going for different parts,
and then the local Polish on top of that as well. Like,
yeah, and the local Polish TV crews are all out, everywhere trying to get interviews of fans and things like that. So, like, that
trying
was
to get interviews. I don't think we were that hot property. We were all trying to get in front of the camera.
Queuing up for autographs.
Yeah, they had a queue of Irish lads with a few points and them trying to say hello to their mothers and fathers.
My worry is that I think it's going to be a really good Euros, and I think that it's going to kind of feed into the organising committee's hands, and I'm going to say, it was such a success, we're going to keep doing it this way, even though I don't think fans would really want it to stay like this. Sorry, that's my opinion. I don't think I've met anyone who likes this format.
With the pandemic, the way, it's freaking awful look for the pandemic to come along when you're trying to do something across a continent rather than in one country, that way, because, like, for example, if you're having it all in the UK, you could probably just limit it to, like, English fans going to the stadiums, and you'd still get a decent amount of fans in, and there'd be an atmosphere there. But yeah, like, it's going to be strange given that it's across all of the different nations, but it adds an extra dimension to it. And yeah, it'll be good to see how it works out, and we can compare and contrast, and it might be the way it goes long term. Who knows?
Yeah, agreed. Right, we'll dive into it. So for anyone who's just joined us, we'll run through all the groups in order, then we'll take the latter stages of the competition, and then player of the tournament and sort of novelty items like that. So first up is Group A.
Just before we go into that, I put the Linktree link into both Facebook and YouTube. So for anybody who's interested, there's a couple of special offers there from our partners at William Hill. So I'll just go through those first. There's actually a Champions League special for this weekend. So this has been recorded on the 27th of May. Obviously, if you're watching after this weekend, this is irrelevant to you. After the 29th, it's relevant to you. But there's a special up there for Manchester City versus Chelsea in the Champions League final. Both teams to score is 4-1. And you're allowed a tenner max bet on that. So it seems like a decent bet, decent bit of entertainment for the game on Saturday. So I said the link is there for that. just follow the link. It's for new customers only. Set up your account, and I said you'll be able to back both teams to score at 4-1. For Euro 2020, we have 3 specials. So the first is in the England-Croatia game. If you fancy England to beat Croatia, you can get that at 35-1. So again, on the link tree, click through, set up your account, 35-1 for England to beat Croatia. In Euro 2020, Wales to win Group A. So if you fancy Wales to win their group outright, it's 30-1 for that. So again, follow those steps. New customers only and mobile only as well. So you have to click through on your mobile. And then there's a real novelty one, but I think it's nailed on given that England are in Wembley. So it's England to wear their home kit against Croatia is 20-1. Now, I don't know how you look into that or how you do an investigation, but I said England are home. I'll just check now actually and see how the designated home team in that game. They're a designated home team in that game. So 20-1. It seems like it's a 1 to 100 shot. So I said those three Euros bets and the Champions League bet are available on our link tree. So just click on that link in the comments, go through, set up your account, and you'll be able to back whichever link you clicked on straight away. So sorry, that admin's out of the way now, LB. So onto the group stuff.
Yeah, just before we dive into the groups, we do have a preview up on the site as well. So as Gary mentioned, the link tree, there's sportsrundown.com, where we have we put up everything that we talk about on these streams, and we have a lot of other articles there. A lot of Euros content is going to be going up over the next little while, and there's plenty of other racing and general football stuff up there too. So make sure to check out sportsrundown.com for that sort of content between now or anytime now and between when the tournament kicks off. So first up, we have Group A, which you can see on the screen there now, is Turkey, Italy, Wales, and Switzerland. I think this is probably going to be one of the tighter groups compared to some of the other ones that are out there. But Gary, do you have any thoughts on how the group is going to shake out?
So I mean, I'm going to be kind of unoriginal here with saying that I think Italy will top the group. So I think we were talking before we came on air about Italy having the home advantage in all 3 of their games, so that they don't have to move from Rome, whereas the other 3 teams are kind of transferring between Rome and Baku, which I don't think is really going to help them. I said, I looking at Italy's record over the last year, it's been fairly impressive. You know, they were good in qualifying. They haven't really faced any of the top teams, but when they did come out against the top teams in the likes of the Nations League, they drew at the Netherlands, and teams like that drew at Poland in the Nations League last year. So I think they'll have enough to get through the group. I think they're probably a decent, we'll get on to winners probably later on, but I think they're probably a decent bet overall. I do have a concern about their firepower up front. There's no real out-and-out goal scorer, especially when you look at the other favourites for the tournament. You know, you look at France, there's Mbappe, you look at England, there's Kane, Belgium, Lukaku, or whatever. There isn't really that.
Well, you could say they've got Ciro Immobile, who's one of the top strikers in Europe the last couple of seasons. I know he doesn't produce it often, but
yeah, no, I was just going to get onto him, but like international record isn't great. You know, 31-year-old, 45 caps, 12 goals. It's not like jumping off the page to me that, like, you know, he's going to be able to carry them through. And even in qualifying, I said they're playing some kind of second-rate teams in qualifying. He did score a couple of goals, but even a couple of them were penalties and things like that.
But that's in Italy, isn't it? I mean, Italy are great at like winning 1-0, scoring a penalty. LBU
exactly. They lost a lot of games
1-0 wins and penalty.
But there was a mad spread of goal scorers. So I just think they might struggle for goals overall. So yeah, I think they'll win the group. I actually think Turkey are a great outside bet. And I think they could surprise a few people. They score an awful lot of goals. They concede an awful lot of goals as well. But they do seem like that, and they play a lovely brand of attacking football. So I think they could be the surprise package, particularly of this group, but maybe of the whole Euros. I think the more I look at Wales, the more I think they're going to struggle. So
yeah, I think
I think Wales has struggled to get out of this group. Aging squad, they're relying a lot on Bale. He hasn't had the greatest seasons, even though he finished the season well.
Do you know he finished with the highest goals per minute ratio of anyone in the Premier League last season?
Yeah, like after Mourinho left, he kind of hit a purple patch, but still, like, I don't know whether he's going to be able to carry the weight.
No, he scored a lot of goals for Spurs that were kind of the situation played into his hands. Teams that were getting the games were opening up late on. I feel like he scored most of his goals late in matches.
A few counter-attacks.
Yeah, or just he thrives in space. He's not going to get that against Italy. And if you look at the centre backs that Turkey have, he's not going to get it against Turkey either.
Yeah, you were saying, Gary, that Turkey conceded a lot of goals. I was kind of just looking back at the qualification group because Turkey, they had a pretty handy group now, in fairness, but France topped it and Turkey beat them at home and drew them away. But across the 10 games, they only conceded 3 goals. So, yeah, I actually, just on that basis, I would have thought they're tidy enough in defence. And that could kind of...
Yeah, like I was going maybe after like the amount of goals in their game, maybe. But yeah, like I think they're going to be a surprise package anyway. I like the team makeup. So I'm going to have a little outside bet on them to win this group, even though I think that that Italy will probably win it.
I've kind of gone the same way, Gary. I've got Italy winning the group. But I wouldn't be surprised. I think Italy and Turkey could draw that opening game. Like just lad said it, they got quite a good defence. Turkey and Italy definitely play not to lose primarily. Could see that. I feel like a lot of competitions open up kind of slow, so I could see that one being a draw. And then Italy, like you said, they're not really out, and there's no proven international goal scorer in that team. I don't think they're going to thrash Switzerland or Wales. I think Turkey could. I know they've got the difficult kind of travel arrangement against Wales, but I think they outscore Wales and they outscore Switzerland by more than Italy and potentially win the group on goal difference ahead of Italy.
On 7 points. Turkey
exactly. That's kind of my backup idea, but I think possibly if that doesn't happen, Italy win the group and they get 9 points. They win all 3 games and go through as group winners. It's probably the more likely outcome, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Turkey kind of frustrate them in the first match. I agree with you about Wales as well. I think they maybe get 1 point. Maybe 2. I don't see them getting more than that. Like you said, their squad, there's no real breakout player since their good run in the Euro 2016, and even that they had a lot of kind of fortunate results in it. But just Bale, like you said, he hasn't had enough game time over the last 2 seasons. I don't think he's going to carry them far, and against teams that like to defend so deep. But I forget, I can't know how to pronounce the Leicester Turkish centre back, but they're going to struggle. So. Yeah, I think Switzerland probably scraped through as one of the third place qualifiers in this group. They don't trouble Turkey or Italy, and they probably get there ahead of Wales. They've actually some decent players, Switzerland, kind of industrial kind of team, but I don't see them topping the group or even second place really.
But when you're saying scrape through third, do you reckon they have a chance of actually qualifying in third?
Yeah. So we can run through it group by group if you want, but I think it'll be A, B, C, and D that produce the 4 third place teams.
And have you kind of determined what points do you think they're going to need to do that? I mean, do you think 1 win with a good goal difference is going to be enough?
Yeah, I think Switzerland will beat Wales, get 3 points, and 3 points will get them into the top 4.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're going to have some groups that have 2 bottom teams that draw with each other and just end up with that 1 point each.
Yeah, I've looked at other people's predictions for the competition and stuff, and a lot of people have picked the big teams, the tough groups.
All 9 points.
No, but they picked the big teams to get. Like, France, Portugal, and Germany. And you think, Germany's a great team if they come third, but it's actually the other way around. It'll be teams in kind of mediocre groups that pick up those third points or third place positions, in my opinion, because it's based on points and goal difference. So I don't think there'll be a team come out of that group of death, for example. But I do think Switzerland, I think they beat Wales to get 3 points, and 3 points is enough to get them through into the
you don't think you don't think Germany will beat Hungary?
We'll get to that in the last group.
Okay, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of it. I'm so excited to hear your Group F predictions.
Yeah. So, any other thoughts on Group A? We're probably, me and Gary seem to have the same opinion. Italy to win it, but don't be surprised if Turkey kind of shake them early on. Yeah,
you've kind of put me off because I'm gonna kind of do it as we go. I like the group winner combo bets, the ACA of group winners. You don't have to do them all, but if you do any you fancy, you can get, decent enough combined odds. And I actually thought Italy at 1-2 was a pretty solid bet there. But you're kind of putting me off it now with this Turkey scaremongering. I just thought Italy at home 3 games. I get what you're saying. That
I wouldn't be scaremongering now. I do, as I said, I do agree with you that Italy are the most likely winners of this group. Home advantage is great. But I have 2 doubts with them. First is the amount of goals they'll score. And the second is if they lose Bonucci or Cellini, like if one of those got injured early on, they might struggle defensively. But I do think they'll top their group.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to stick with them at 1-2 as group winner.
Anyway. I mean, at 1-2, it's probably a fair price for them. I wouldn't be talking anybody out of that. But if it's a draw on the first day, Turkey will top that group on goal difference. Right, so that's Group A wrapped up. We move on to Group B now. So this is Denmark, Finland, Belgium, and Russia. So a very Northern European-looking group there. It's an interesting one. You've got Belgium, the number 1 ranked team in the world, and then you've got Finland in their first, I think it's their first ever international competition. It's certainly their first Euros competition. Not sure, do you have any thoughts on that, guys?
The one thing jumping out at me massively here, and just to continue on from how we kind of wrapped up the last group, like Belgium are 5-6 to win the group, and as you're saying, like the top ranked team. I just don't see.
I think that's down to where they play the games. They're in St. Petersburg for the first match. Yeah, so they go from there. Then they play Denmark in Copenhagen, and then they play Finland back in Russia, which geographically is a lot closer. So they're the kind of So it's they're playing Russia at home. They're playing Denmark at home. So it's a tough one. I think that's a good price for Belgium. I think they're going to do well in the group. I think they're going to do well in the whole tournament. I think 5-6 is a great price for them to.
I mean, even if they stepped up one of those games, like I don't see any of the other teams winning all of their games anyway. You know what I mean? Like I don't see somebody getting a result against Belgium or even drawing against Belgium and going on to win their other 2 to manage to top it that way. I still think Belgium could get away. All right, if they draw up in Russia, fair enough. They could even draw with Russia, draw with Denmark, beat Finland, and you know what I mean, and still potentially top the group. But I just think 5-6 seems good value there.
I think Belgium win all 3 of those games. By the way, personally, I think they're.
Yeah, me too. I agree with that, LB. I think that they do have that travel to navigate, but they have a squad that's used to playing, Wednesday Champions League, Saturday in the league, Wednesday Champions League, So I don't think it's going to impact them as much as it would, let's say, Finland, who was in their group and probably wouldn't have that level. The players are used to having a week with their clubs between games, I think Belgium will top the group. I think Denmark will struggle to get out of the group. The only doubt in my mind is that they have kind of the home field advantage in their games. And obviously that's a big thing in legacy tournaments. All of the hosts have usually done well. But I just don't, maybe it's because they've beaten Ireland over the years and played Ireland so much. I just don't think they're a great team. They rely heavily on Ericsson, who hasn't had a great season.
Barely played this season, really. Ericsson, he's not.
I just, they're relying on the likes of Poulsen to get their goals up front. I don't really rate Thomas Delaney in midfield. Schmeichel's a decent keeper, so he usually gets them out of jail a couple of times. But I just think that
you're saying you don't think they get out of the group. Do you mean in the kind of in the first or second, or do you even think they won't get one of the best third places?
I think they get the best third place because of Finland. So I think.
Yeah, I think Finland could be a little bit of a surprise package in this group now.
Oh really?
Yeah, I know.
What odds would you give me Finland to get 0 points?
Well,
lose all 3. Well, I don't think you'll give me better odds than the bookie. So I think they lose all 3 games, Finland. I think Russia always overperform when they get to the tournaments.
Give me
well,
odds.
I didn't expect you to say that, so I got no odds for it at the minute. Well, think about it throughout the show, and we'll come back to it at the novel.
Anybody watching in, let us know what the odds should be. Finland not to get a point, and I'll take that bet all day long. I agree. They haven't had great form coming into the tournament, But I don't think they're as bad a team. I don't think there's not that much between them and Denmark or Russia. So the only thing that's differentiating those teams is the fact that they have home advantage. So yeah, I could see Denmark only getting like 2 draws or something like that and being knocked out.
I think Denmark beat Finland, lose to Belgium, draw with Russia, and then get in as on 4 points in the third place. Another third place team to go through, 4 points. That's my call on Denmark. I think Belgium, I think they probably beat Russia in the first match. They get 9 points, win the group. Russia comes second on 4 with a better goal difference than Denmark, but potentially draw with Belgium, and it's 7 for Belgium, 5 for Russia. I do
think it's going to really come down. Those first games are going to be really, really decisive. And
if Denmark don't beat Finland in that first game, they're out. There's no way home for them. And I think if Russia don't lose to Belgium in the first game, they're probably going to get through as well. I think Belgium will probably make it one way or the other.
Yeah, maybe. No, I think they're big games. The first couple, but I think it's an interesting group. On paper, it doesn't look that interesting, but I think it could be a really competitive group. In reality.
Yeah. So moving on to Group C, then. This one is Netherlands, Ukraine, Austria, and North Macedonia, which is another kind of interesting group as well, to call it what you call it, Gary. I think that we'll get into the details. I think Netherlands are probably, they haven't delivered on their promise of a couple of years ago. And I think if you're a Dutchman, this is the group you wanted to be in my opinion. I think it lines up very nicely for them with the way the latter rounds of the competition line up as well. So I'm not sure what your thoughts are on Group C, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see by. I don't think Holland. They're not the same Holland that they were under, or Netherlands as they were under Koeman. But I think again it's hard to look by them with the fact they're going to be playing all the games in the Amsterdam Arena. Like, it's hard to see North Macedonia and Ukraine especially going there and taking points off them. So I think they'll get out with either 7 or 9 points.
Ukraine had a pretty decent qualifying group. They were unbeaten, topped the group ahead of Portugal.
You say Ukraine? I think I think Ukraine are probably, they're not going to win it or anything like that, but they're dark horses for the group stages and even the round of 16. I think they are one of those teams that be tight with them in Austria
somewhere. Yeah, and I'd be again looking at the group winner odds. Like Netherlands are 4th to 11, which you definitely would expect them to top that group. But I could just see Ukraine getting an upset somewhere along the way. So whether it's in that or whether it's in the round of 16.
I just think it's like, again, the turnarounds would be a big thing for me against. Like, I think they could finish second in the group. I think Holland will win the group. But like, they play, Ukraine play Holland on this 13th of June at like 8 o'clock in the evening. So they'll be out of the stadium at 11 o'clock or whatever. And then they have to get from Amsterdam to Bucharest to like play 4 days later at a 2 o'clock kickoff against North Macedonia. Whereas North Macedonia are playing both their games in Bucharest, and they're at an earlier kickoff on the opening day as well, a 5 p.m. kickoff rather than the 8 p.m. kickoff. So I just think that's an awful lot to ask of a team, to travel and put in the performances.
If it was a tougher opponent, it's a fairy tale for North Macedonia to go far in this, but I don't see them. I don't even think that they'll trouble. I think they get maybe 1, probably 0 points in this group as well. I think they might sneak a draw with Austria, but I don't see them beyond that.
Yeah, my point was, if I was the manager there, I would probably, you'd be tempted to rest a few players probably against North Macedonia, given the tight turnaround. But then you can't, if you do that and you mess up against them and you've lost to the Netherlands, you could be shooting yourself in the foot. So I think it's going to be a tough decision for the manager. And again, if he's playing the same team 3 games in a row, or the same kind of core group of players 3 games in a row, that fatigue could catch up on them. So that wouldn't be doubt about them. But I agree with you; they had some decent form in qualifying. and they could sneak second ahead of Austria.
Yeah, interesting. You like Ukraine, Slats, do you?
Yeah, I would. I'd fancy them for an upset somewhere. I just, they just did well in that qualifying group. I still have memories of them being a pretty strong side in European competition, and then they kind of went off the boil for maybe a decade there, and I kind of feel like maybe they're on the way back a bit. And yeah, I think there could be an upset in the right.
Yeah, Shevchenko at the helm, he might coax it out of them.
That could be it too. Like, yeah, with his experience and kind of, they'd all be looking up to him too. That sort of way. They would play for him.
It is interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Gary.
I was going to say that the West Ham fan in me would like to see them do well for Yarmolenko, and I think he actually could shine. Obviously, he didn't get much game time with West Ham this season, but his international record is very good, so he could be a player to watch out for in the groups. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. The next one up is Group D, which is probably the toughest group to call for me in a lot of ways, but England home advantage, that's going to be huge for them. But then kind of the non-home nations, Croatia, one of their most sort of torn in their side recent rivals, and obviously Scotland would be the old enemy for them, and then I think Czech Republic are probably going to be the also rans in that group. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on Group D, guys.
Yeah, I agree. They're all sides who could take a scalp there from their game against England. Like each of them individually, they're tough sides. You'd still have to think England will come out on top across the 6 games within that group. But at 1 to 3 to be the group winner, there doesn't seem to be that much value. I still like, obviously Croatia did great there in the last tournament, and they've kind of gone off the boil a bit, but they still have a lot of quality there, right? You wouldn't be writing them off.
Yeah, Croatia are one of the ones for me that I'm probably not going to back them, even though they're big odds overall.
25 to 1 to win outright, like, yeah.
Yeah, they've been so poor. I think they've lost like most of their recent matches in the last 18 months. They have a lot of quality there. The players don't look right. I'm not sure. It's one of those ones, if they play well against England in that first match and kind of kick on from there, I think they could actually go very far in the competition.
Yeah, you could see them making like a semi-final again.
This is one of those ones. England will be favourites in all 3 of those matches, and they're on paper they're better than all 3 of those teams. And the England bottleneck type of thing doesn't tend to happen this early in the competition. But I actually think it's a better draw for them to come second in this group. I think whoever comes second in this group, we'll get to it later on. We'll play the runner-up in the winner of the next group. The runner-up of the next group and the runner-up of this group play each other, which is kind of a quirk in the scheduling. But I think it's quite a nice position to come second. I think they'll probably still win at England. I think, Croatia will play well, admirably lose in the first match. That'll ignite their campaign. They'll go on to win their second and third matches and finish second in the group in 6 points. I think.
So, just on that, England, England's likely opponents in the round of 16, because I think that's an interesting outcome to kind of like to look ahead to. So if they win the group, they play the third place, potentially the third place from Group F, is it?
Depends who gets out of the other groups.
I know that third place mind melter that we looked at, and that you did the good piece on the website, that table to kind of demonstrate who ends up where.
Yeah.
But, they potentially have a big side there from Group F, whereas the runner-up of Group E, if they come second in their group, they're looking at Poland or Sweden, realistically.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Exactly. I think, exactly. That's my thinking there, that it could actually suit England to come second. I don't think they will. I think they'll end up winning the group. I think home advantage is going to be big. They're going to have, they'll have players who had very good seasons domestically. They're going to be on a high. Stadiums will be full. I think they beat Croatia, I think Croatia will do better than people think in that game, but I think England probably have enough to beat them game 1. The interesting for me is Scotland. They've got other than England, they played their other 2 games at home. So in Hampden Park, they play Croatia and the Czech Republic. And I actually think down in Wembley, they could even, I don't think they will in the end, but I think they could push England for a draw. I think it's going to be the biggest match they've played in God knows how long for the Scottish players. And if England have beaten Croatia in the first match, they'll have 1 foot in the round of 16 already. What are your thoughts on Group D, Gary?
Yeah, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. So, like, I'm with you on Croatia. I think that they're probably coming in on the radar. I don't think they'll win the Euros. But, like, if you look back on the results over the last year or so, there haven't been that many heavy defeats. They've lost by the odd goal here and there. And even if you go back to the Nations League last year when they were up against France, they lost twice to France, but they were in the game for a long way. I think the first game they lost 4-2, but they actually took the lead, went 1-0 up, went back to 2-1, got to 2-2, and then towards the end, France got 2 late goals. And in the next game, then France went 1-0 up, Croatia got back to 1-1, and then another late goal ended it and finished 2-1. So, like, they're not going out against teams and being beaten 2-3, 4-0. They're getting beaten 1-0, 2-1, 3-2. Like, they're not they have a core of a good team. They just need to click at the right time. Like,
they are definitely one of those countries that play with a lot of pride. Like, they overperform for the national team.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that is a bit of a downer is, like, Modric. I saw him play a couple of games recently, and I just didn't think he was the Modric that was there in the last World Cup, or you would have seen at Real Madrid like a couple of years ago, or Tottenham before that. And he's the player that usually makes them tick. But if himself and Kovacic can get interlinking and play on top form, and you've got the likes of Rebic with his pace, like, that's enough to cause a lot of teams problems. Like, with them going forward, so teams defensively. So yeah, I think they could cause problems for England. I also agree with you. I think Scotland, like, if you took the Scotland team and look at it, you've actually got some, like, decent Premier League players and players that ended the season in form. So, like John McGinn, who, he's not a superstar. He's kind of in the shadow of Grealish at Aston Villa. But if you look at him on the last day of the season, he was playing like possessed, that way.
Yeah.
The amount of times he got the ball on the half turn was against Chelsea, wasn't it? He just, like, glided by their midfielders.
They'll be a bit like Croatia, and they'll play above their standard, their kind of expected club level. I think Scotland get 4 points in this group. I think they draw with England and beat Czech.
I think it cause England trouble as well, because they have, like, Stuart Armstrong, who, like, loves on the counter attack. He's a good attacking midfielder, and then they've Che Adams with loads of pace in behind. So if England have to come out and Scotland sit back and just hit them on the counter attack, I could see them maybe causing an upset. That said, like, when you look at it, you look at England's squad. They've got a great squad. I think they should win the group, but you're going to have Croatia, who will be up for it and have the confidence because they beat them in the last World Cup. You're going to have Scotland, who, as you said, LB, like, this is the biggest game for them since probably Euro 96. So
I think if Croatia played England in not the first match, I think they'd beat them. They turned them over. But I think first game, they're not up to it yet. It'll take them a bit of time to get up and running.
Yeah, my thought on England specifically is, if Southgate has the balls to play an attacking team, they'll go far in the tournament and they'll piss the group. But I don't like the way he's been playing two holding midfielders against basic opposition. Like, he's playing Declan Rice and Henderson, or Rice and Calvin Phillips, kind of holding in centre midfield. And I think that's not England's strength, like, let Rice, pick one of them, Rice, Henderson or Phillips, and have them start defensive midfielder, tell them not to go above the halfway line, and get Foden, Grealish, all your attacking options on the pitch, bring them into play. I think they'll have too much for teams. But if he starts being defensive and holding them back, I just think that a lot of the teams will be able to sit in, frustrate them, and maybe hit them on the counter attack and cause them issues. So, yeah, that's my thinking on England. I do think, I said it in the piece on the website, I think they'll probably get to the semi-finals. The goalkeeping position stresses me out with them. Like, if you're backing them at 4-1, Like, I mean, I think it's a stupid price of 4-1, even though they could win the tournament. But the goalkeeping position really stresses me out if I was having a bet, and I just don't understand why Southgate had kind of dug himself into a hole with Alexander Arnold, because anybody who makes a mistake, particularly if one of the right back, like if Reece James plays right back and makes a mistake in the first game against Croatia and England lose, all of the press are going to be like, well, why isn't Alexander Arnold in the squad? If they aren't getting the ball into the box enough, why isn't Alexander Arnold in the squad?
He's kind of become the cause celebre over there,
exactly,
so I can
think
see
that
what you
question is
mean.
going to be asked over and over and over again if England start to do bad. And like when you look at the people who are in the provisional squad, like your man Godfrey for Everton, brilliant season, like, you know, probably deserves to be there. But does he deserve to be there over a guy who's, you know, won the Champions League, won the Premier League in the last couple of seasons, has a little bit of an off season this season? I don't know. I think, I said, he's given the media something to latch onto, and usually that's what starts to bring the pressure on England managers, and then things go wrong. So goalkeeper and that right back spot, I think, are going to be their downfall.
You're saying the semi-final. I think they go out in the round of 16 again. I think they'll win the group here, and that's then the runner-up from the group of death is who they'll play in the next round, and whoever that is, won't be Hungary, we can agree, and it'll either be France, Germany, or Portugal. I think they'll probably struggle in that game and go out. But we'll see to that one. I actually think Scotland get through as one of the third place teams. I think they pick up 4 points in this group. They beat the Czech Republic and pick up a draw, and that the 4 points is enough for them to go through the back door route. So
yeah, as I said, if McTominay can perform the way he did in last night's Europa League final, and, you know, as I said, you've got like Billy Gilmore in there, up and coming at Chelsea, looked like a superstar when he got his chance on the Lampard. You've got McGinn, you've got Armstrong. They do have a decent core of players. They're not in the top echelons of players, but again, with a bit of passion behind them, the fact they're playing at home in a few of the games, I think, Joe, I agree with you. I think they could probably qualify. They might even get to the quarters if they got lucky. But I can't see them winning it, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Agree with that. Next up, we have Group E, which is an interesting one: Spain, Sweden, Poland, and Slovakia. It's one I can't make my mind up on it. Well, I have an opinion on it now, but I've changed it about 5 times over the last 2 weeks. I think Lewandowski's finished the season on a high, which is kind of warmed me up on Poland. I do like Poland, but I thought they'd struggle. But seeing the way Lewandowski finished the season off, I think they might be a little bit better than I'd originally thought. Spain, they're another one that's hot and cold. I'm not sure if you've been following the team selection over there and the kind of drama around that. But like
I mean, the no Real Madrid players is getting an awful lot of publicity anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, most of the main nations have taken a provisional 33 or 30 man squad, which they'll bring down to 26 when the competition starts. And Enrique has just gone straight in with a 24-man squad. So he's got 2 unfilled positions, and he's not taken a single Madrid player. And I mean, Sergio Ramos is, you either love him or you hate him, and he's an absolute scoundrel when it comes to it. But I mean, the experience he has, it's the polite word.
Name he's been called in a while.
Yeah, but what he would add to a dressing room, and you see it, it's very common now. We saw it in the Europa League final with Harry Maguire with his bib on, going up to the players every opportunity he could, talking to the youngsters or the fringe players who were in the team. If you've Sergio Ramos there coming up to you at a corner, telling you what to do or where to stand or just calming you down, like, how do you just exclude? Okay, he's been injured a lot of the season. He probably won't be starting for them. But to have 2 unfilled positions on the squad is just, it's confrontational. I think if Spain were in a more difficult group, they'd struggle. But I think this group will be somewhat obliging to them.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. I actually think this is going to be a fairly dogged Spain team. When I look at it and you see, like, they've actually had a very good defense, like with Aymeric Laporte having declared for them. So you've got Azpilicueta and people like that there. I think they could be very solid defensively. And similar to Italy, they'll probably get through their group, but their downfall will be their goals laid on. I think their midfield is kind of aging as well. people in there like Busquets and players like that who like Koke, who have been around a while. So I don't know whether they're able to get around the way they used to be, or used to get around. But I think in between that, defensively and attacking, they look all right, even though like they'll be counting on Morata to score all of their goals, and he hasn't been that clinical. Really, in kind of,
yeah, I think Sweden, they're not what they used to be with Ibrahimovic. Slovakia, they don't have much of a squad either. I think Spain and Poland beat both of those teams. I think Spain and Poland draw with each other, and I think Spain probably topped the group on goal difference. I'm not sure. It's a tough one. I went with Spain topping the group. They have 3 home games, so I think they might turn the style on a bit against. It's home to, I think it's Slovakia they play in the last game. If goal difference is coming into play, they'll kind of rack up a score there to win the group. Yeah.
They're 1-4 to win the group, but like it's hard to see past that. Like it actually seems pretty reasonable odds.
Yeah, if it was a neutral venue, maybe they're too good for Poland, but they're playing in Sevilla. I think Poland, Lewandowski has come into form, which is why I've warmed up on them, but they don't have a huge amount behind Lewandowski, and I think in Spain in the summer heat, I think they're going to be too strong for them. I don't think they go much further than this, though. I think, like you say, Gary, you kind of pointed out pretty succinctly the gaps in their squad there, and I think against more cutthroat opposition they're going to struggle. But I don't see Sweden or Slovakia putting it up to them. I think Poland might scrape a draw in that match, so Spain might get 7 points or 9, one or the other. They'll top the group. I don't see anyone getting out of this. I think maybe Sweden and Slovakia draw 1 point each and then lose their other games and don't come out of this one as a third place team.
Yeah, and as you said, it just seems strange. Just back to Spain, like the 24-man element of it just seems strange to me.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to some people about this. If that was, if you tried to imagine that, for us, like in Ireland, a kind of a local rivalry type thing, and somebody wasn't picked potentially because of where he was from, and the manager was from a rival team, and he didn't bring a full squad, you'd be absolutely livid about it. To not bring, I mean.
Well, what is the? I think that there's players out there who, like, let's say Pablo Fornals for West Ham this season. He's been one of their best players. He does a job, and I said he's a great player to get stuck in. There's other young players out there, like the guy for Villarreal, Pino. I thought he played really well in the game yesterday, and the games I've seen him in the league this season, he's played well as well. So the people like that, if you're thinking to the future, what's Fornals, 21, 22, Pino's 18, you bring them along just so they get the feel for tournament football and the buzz. They get 10 minutes here and there in games that you're 3 or 4 open, or you don't need to win.
It's like you said about Southgate, though. He should have just not made any big deal about Alexander-Arnold and just kind of let it happen the way it did and not really engage. And now he's got the monkey on his back about, is he going to play him? Is he not going to play him? And as soon as things go wrong for Spain, I think Luis Enrique's kind of dug his own grave a bit. He's just, it was so needless. He could have named 30 players at this stage and nobody would have batted an eyelid. But he's gone, just to go 24, it just seems like he's playing up a bit. And I don't think, he not glowing recommendations from Barcelona fans about him either from his time there. So, yeah, I think Spain, they're in an easy group. I think they'll do the business. And I think after that, then they're going to struggle. So we'll move on to Group F then, unless anyone has any final thoughts there.
No, not for me.
No. So Group F, this is certainly on paper the group of death. It's probably the toughest group I've seen in a long time in a competition. For Hungary finally get to a big competition, and then they get Portugal, the last Euros winners, France, the last World Cup winners, and Germany, which won the World Cup before that. So absolute killer group for
in some ways,
Hungary.
The fans will probably be happy enough to be, playing 3 big teams on the big stage. Like they could be in the worst group and still not get out of it.
Yeah, it's a bit like when Ireland got to the Euros in Poland, and it was Spain, Croatia, and Italy, and you're just like, well, here we go.
Well,
I didn't try to bring that up.
We were traveling
to it. You're like, oh yeah, we'll be grand. Even if we lose, it'll be all right. But when you're like Ireland, and you're getting absolutely hockeyed, you have 12% possession in the games. It doesn't not that fun then. So.
Yeah. We spoke at the start of the show, Slat. You were kind of laughing about this and my thoughts on it.
Well,
I just think
your expectations of Germany aren't too high.
Germany have been so poor the last year, maybe even up to 2 years. They've not been themselves. And I can't think of a team, certainly in football, that they've announced that the manager is gone and they play well in the period between that announcement and when he actually goes. And he's not been much of a bold decision kind of manager. You know, there's some Asian guys in that squad who big names. Is he going to take them out? I mean, there was the kind of squad turmoil, you know, going back 2 years with some of the foreign-born players who were in the team, and there was a lot of bad feeling, and he didn't really do anything to resolve that. And I just think, what's he got now? 5 weeks left, 6 weeks left before he's moving on to retirement. I just think that they're going to go out with a whimper. I know they got the home advantage, which is big, and the first match that they play France on the 15th of June, that's at home for them. If they win that, I'll probably be eating my words, and it could give them a final kind of last hurrah for Lowe, but I just don't see it. I think France are too good for them. I think Portugal would be too smart for them, and Hungary, it's be the last game of the group for Hungary, probably the last game of the tournament. I actually think Hungary put it up to them, and that match ends in a draw, and they get 1 point. I think they go out bottom or tied bottom with Hungary on 1 point, and nobody goes out of that group from third place. Bold prediction.
How do you follow that?
You think they draw with Hungary and finish the group on 1 point?
Yeah.
I'm
going to go bold. Like I said, if they beat France in the first match, then I'll probably have to eat my whole words and redo my whole expectations for the competition. They could go very far. I'm not trying to hedge my bets, though. I'm calling it. They lose to France, they lose to Portugal, they draw with Hungary.
Any feeling between who comes out on top between France and Portugal then?
It's a tough one. I've been looking at it in a lot of detail. I think France on goal difference. Portugal aren't a kind of thrashing sort of team. You know, they're very, very smart. They're very defensive. I think in the competitions, they're quite conservative. I know in the between competitions, they open things up a bit. I think it'll be a cagey match against Hungary. They beat them maybe 2-0. And I think at the end of the competition then, if France have beaten Germany in the first match, I think they hockey Hungary in the second match. I think France will go through on goal difference. But yeah, that's my thoughts. France 7 points, Portugal 7 points. It is an interesting one. The last game of the group, if France and Germany or France and Portugal both have 2 wins under their belt, they might just kind of rotate the squads a bit. Gary mentioned it earlier. It's a tough schedule, so if you're as good as through, put some of the fringe players in there and just play out as a draw in the third group game between the two of those. That's my thinking.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be as down in Germany as you are, even though like I wouldn't be backing them for the tournament, but I can see them getting out more than a point out of that group. So on their day, they've still got a lot of class in there. Granted, like your concerns are valid with the manager going and things like that, but and there's also, like, you look at, they got beaten relatively recently by Spain 6-0. They lost to, I know it wasn't their full strength team, but they lost to North Macedonia recently as well. So there's results out there that show they're on the decline.
I think they have 5 wins in their last 11 games. So
yeah,
it's more than the 2 you mentioned. Obviously, they're the standout.
Yeah, there's ones that I like to know, just to call out, because it's about hockey and a team that you would expect them to be comfortable if they lost to. I think that they could cause Portugal problems. I think France will beat them. I think they could cause Portugal problems. Maybe get a draw out of that. And then I think they'll beat Hungary. I don't think they'll go too far in the tournament, though. I think France are going to win the group and win the tournament. That's basically.
So you think Germany comes second in that group ahead of Portugal?
I
actually think Portugal.
I think I can see both of them having. I think France could beat both of them. I think they'll draw, like Portugal and Germany will draw. It's going to come down to who beats Hungary by the biggest amount, or who lost to France by the least amount. That's the way I think it'll work out. I think they'll both be on 4 points, and they'll come down to goal difference. But
yeah, Sorry. No, you go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I kind of, a week ago I settled on Belgium as being my bet, and then I looked at France's squad again, and like, you need a few of them to get back on form, like Griezmann and players like that. But when you look at their squad, I mean, I like the fact that you've got kind of goals from everywhere. So you've got Griezmann, he's had 35 international goals. Giroud 44, Benzema's back, he's 27 international goals. Pogba is in double figures. Mbappe is in double figures. So you've got a lot of goals in the team, and then any team with Kante in there shouldn't be conceding too many goals as well. Kante, Varane, those type of players. So I just think that you need, like, kind of hoping that they get back and they get that atmosphere back in the squad of, you know what, we're World Cup winners and everybody's mates again. They kind of click and go, like, hit the ground running. If they can, and if the likes of Pogba and Griezmann can bounce back to form that they showed in the international football before, I think France could be hard to beat, and I think they're a decent bet.
I think France will struggle to be beaten. Benzema back in the squad. It was a bold call by Deschamps. He brought him back in. Did you see the clip of him arriving up? I forget the name of that big palace at the French kind of their football HQ when Benzema arrived. It was kind of a cool video. Benzema looked real cagey, and he kind of got a big hug and welcomed the name. I think he'll settle into that squad. He's a lot mature now than he was 2 World Cups ago, and I think he'll be their main scorer. I think he's going to do the business for them, and they'll go far. Portugal, though, people talk about them like, oh, you know, Ronaldo's out of sort and stuff like that. Their squad is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
Portugal. Like, if you just go through that, like, every single one of their players is going to either be, well, if City win the Champions League, they'll have Champions League winners, Premier League winners, Portuguese winners, Spanish league winners, French league winners. Every single one of them has picked up a trophy nearly this season. I'd say the worst form of any of their squad is going to be Ronaldo, and you know he only needs to have 15 good minutes in the competition and convert them to victory. And they won the Euros last 4 years ago, and he was basically injured for the whole thing. Yeah, so I think Portugal will be a very difficult team to play against, like they were in the previous Euros. They'll defend very deep, and then they'll just catch teams out badly. I think Germany will be second game. Germany will have lost to France. In my vision of how this is going to pan out, they'll be forced in it against Portugal, and I think they'll be sucker punched. And then there'll be 0 wins. There'll be 2 losses from 2, and that's them out. I think Portugal, depending on how the group stages finish and who plays who, I think they go very far, Portugal. And then France. France have got the most quality, I think, of any team on the continent. It's just, do they click? Like you said, Gary, a lot of the big names have had niggling injuries and kind of patches of form, but not really consistent form. If it clicks, I don't see who beats them, but will they click? I'm not going to back them at 5-1, but I think it was a smart move to bring Benzema back in. We said it actually in the preview article. You know, the forwards is probably, even though it's the most talent-rich part of the team, it's probably where the questions were around the form, and he brings Benzema in, who's in the form of his career. So I think
in the normal format of these tournaments, if 2 players get out of the same group, they don't meet until the final again.
That's the same here.
It's the same, first and second, I presume. But if somebody gets through third, then
Yeah, sorry, exactly. If you get through third, you play them relatively quickly. I think in the semi-final, maybe.
Yeah.
But first and second won't meet till the final.
Yeah, because like France to meet Portugal in the final is 30-1. And it's quite far down the list of, like, the odds start at 17th one, so it's not like it's massively wider than the favorite, but it seems like a reasonable matchup. If they'll certainly be battle hardened if they both come out of that group first and second.
Yeah, I think that actually in my round of 16 to final notes, I've got France meet Portugal in the final. I think if France win the group and Portugal comes second, I think that the question mark for me, and the 2 question marks for me really around that, are if England finish second and they get a slightly more convenient route through, or if Turkey actually top Group A and Italy comes second, Italy could meet France a little bit sooner than I might have thought, and their know-how, and if France haven't quite hit their heights, you don't want to be coming up against Italy in sort of semi-finals of competitions. But so, that's kind of my thinking, but I think the way I see it panning out, it's a France-Portugal final. I mean, that's kind of a cop-out because if they both get out of the group, it's the only time they meet again as well. So,
but I mean, in terms of odds, it is kind of handy for that. That like, you know, there's so many other combinations you could pick, and they end up hitting each other in the semi-final because one of them, you know, comes second in their group or whatever. But those two, if you know, they're not going to meet each other again, so it kind of nearly is a bit of value on the odds available for it.
Yeah. So while we've got up on the screen now for anyone who's still watching the groups A through F, all of them up there at the same time now, and just so there was no confusion, the way I see it running out, I think that in Group A, I think Italy and Turkey qualify. I think Switzerland will get probably 3 points, and that'll be enough for them to go through. The two groups that don't produce anybody, I think Sweden and Slovakia, they probably draw with each other, get 1 point. I can't see them struggling Spain or Poland, and they get no more than one each, and that there's no third place goes through there. And I think in Group F, I think Germany and Hungary draw, and that's the only points they pick up. And that's my bold prediction.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone gets through from there. The other groups are, even if I'm wrong about Germany, I still think it's a tough group for people to get out of because, you know, France and Portugal are very similar. And, you know, if one of them don't turn up in the competition, like, you know, the form thing about France that Gary mentioned, and they don't play well and Germany outperform, I still don't see a Group F person necessarily getting the points to go through. I think in the other groups, there's, you know, you've got Finland, you've got North Macedonia, you've got teams that are just a bit weaker that everyone is going to get a win from potentially, and you've got 3 or 4 points quite easily, and that's where A, B, C, and D produce the third place teams for me.
Yeah, I think maybe Group D, I could see like there's a lot. I think Group D is really open, but it could end up with Czech Republic and Scotland drawing for a point each too. Like it's quite conceivable that that'll be the outcome there. But yeah, I mean, like it does feel like there could be a lot of upsets throughout that group as well, and Scotland could definitely get a win for themselves along the way. So it's yeah.
Well, we'll run through the round of 16 now. So the first game up is the winner of Group B against one of the third place teams. So who do you think is in that? I think it's going to be Belgium against Switzerland. I think Belgium win their group, and I think Switzerland come third. Obviously, depending on the groups to produce the third teams, that's a complete lottery at the minute. But I think it's Belgium, Switzerland in that first match.
But there's kind of common scenarios in each of those groups on that table that you created, the kind of color coded table, and B versus A is in a good volume of those potential scenarios, right?
Yeah. That is true, yeah. I think if it's the lower, like the groups C through F are the ones that produce the best third place teams, then it's not going to be obviously A. But I think that the way Group A is lined up, I think they get one of the third place teams. And I think if A are in it, it's very likely to win our Group B. Would you have any thoughts on the round of 16 in general, lads, or any kind of expectations for it?
No, like I've tried to do up a wall chart, and I keep going back on myself on it. So I think some of the groups they're tough to predict outside of the winners how they're going to play out. And as you've mentioned previously, I think that the first games in a lot of groups are going to be really, really decisive, because teams will know if they get a win, potentially they'll start playing negative football, so they pick up points to stop other teams from picking up 3 points, if you know what I mean. So it could start to become tactical like that. I haven't got any strong opinions.
I think you're right though. Outside of the kind of group winners that you would fancy, like second place, and you were mentioning about one group, Gary, where two teams draw, and then it's like which of them lost by less to the first team or won by more against the fourth team is going to dictate. So like it's really fine margins that's going to send them off in completely different directions throughout the rest of the tournament and into
as well other groups. So if you're looking at it and you're like, right, we like a draw will do us here because that'll keep us as the third or fourth best third place team because other teams have been hockeyed, then it could change it as well there. Teams will just go out to not lose.
Yeah.
I actually think, is there a scenario in there where a team have to play a penalty shootout to see who goes through? If all things remain equal, like if they end on goal difference, results, and goals scored.
But so they'd have to meet up just for a penalty shootout, you mean? Or
I think I read that on UEFA.
No, I went through that horror document on the UEFA site. It goes, I wrote it down. It goes points, goal difference, goals scored, wins, less disciplinary points, so less cards and red cards, and then it goes on to your European overall coefficient. So if they don't, in the third place teams, if they don't get if they get down to that level of the same wins, same goals, same everything, it's just who's a higher ranked team.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I can't imagine we get to that level. That's ridiculously far down.
They would have to.
They need to get nearly the exact same score in every game and the same amount of cards.
Here, I've actually gone onto the site just to get it up. Because if two teams facing each other in their last group game are dead level and draw, their position in the group is determined by a penalty shootout.
Oh, sorry. This is the third place teams against third place teams in other groups. This is for a second place team where everything else in their own. So
they both draw 1-1 in their first two games, and then they draw 1-1 in their third game.
Yeah, so they have a penalty shootout in their game then.
Oh yeah.
And that's a new thing in this tournament that they brought in.
I'm trying to think, is any
group
like
a lottery trying to do. As I said, every time I got to the wall chart thing, I was just like going back on myself, being like, well, like who wins the penalty? Like we saw a penalty shootout last night where it was down to the keepers, like you know that way. So
yeah.
I think some of that outside of group winners and outside of teams that, I think we're all fairly agreed that likes of Turkey could cause a problem and finish second in their group and get through. But outside of when you start being bullish about teams and you start getting to, well, it's a flip of a coin between, I don't know, let's say Portugal and Germany, you start getting into it's actually really a flip of a coin because there's these other kind of things that come out. So
who are the groups in particular? So you've got like the Netherlands, Ukraine, Austria, right? Like it's perfectly conceivable that Ukraine and Austria could be in this, they both lose and Netherlands beat Macedonia, and the last game of that group is Ukraine-Austria. So that could actually could decide it there.
Oh, and yeah. What happens if the two teams aren't playing each other in the last game, but like the 90 minutes of each of their games finishes and they're at the point where they would be playing a penalty shootout if they were playing against each other? Because you don't have to be playing against.
No, that can't have happened because they'd have played each other and then surely, they could have drawn, I suppose.
They drew, and then they.
Back to the rule book, Gary. Read the rest of the small print there for us. All 700 pages.
We'll just sit here in silence and wait for you to find.
Yeah. While he's doing that, right? So these are just my kind of predictions for the round of 16. So that's how I see it going. Obviously, some of the third place teams could shuffle this up. I think Belgium take on Switzerland in the first one. I think Belgium beat them. I think the second one is Italy against Austria. I think Italy beat Austria. France, Ukraine. I think France topped their group. They play Ukraine and beat them. Croatia, Poland. I think Croatia coming into form. Croatia beat Poland, having finished second in their group. Spain, Denmark in the fifth of the round of 16 games. I think Spain will beat them. England, Portugal in the third last round of 16 game. I think Portugal beat England, and that's their customary round of 16 exit. I think Portugal will be too smart. The big caveat is if England finish second, it completely changes this. You got Netherlands against a team I can't read in my own handwriting, which is pretty bad. Netherlands win that anyway. And then Turkey, Russia is the last one. I think Turkey beat Russia. I think they finished second in their group. They beat Russia, and then you get into your quarterfinals there. And I think that's
just out of interest. In your round of 16 that you went through there, were Ukraine finishing third in their group?
Second, I believe. Let me double check my notes.
Because you had
third.
Yeah, because you had Austria to play Italy. So Ukraine finishing third would get hit with the runner-up of the group of that.
Yeah, which would be Portugal.
Yeah, that's a pretty nasty game for them. I was kind of saying that, I think Ukraine could have a bit of an upset in them, but if they need to be finishing second in their group.
Yeah, I think if they finish second, it's that's a big difference between second and third in that group.
You would Austria to play Italy, so that's not exactly a straightforward game either. But maybe if Ukraine managed to hit Turkey coming out of Group A on goal,
so Turkey could win that, and you get Turkey up there, and Italy then against Russia down at the other end. It could completely change it. That's what I think. The two games for me, and maybe three to give myself a bit of leeway. the opening night, Turkey against Italy, France, Germany in the first group game of that group, and England, Croatia as the first game in that group. I think those three have the biggest impact until the knockout rounds, which
how everything
they'll set those teams onto different paths, and they're kind of three crucial ones, because I don't see England or Croatia not winning the group. I think if France don't beat Germany, that completely blows group of death open, but I think they do. And then I think Italy, Turkey is the same there. I think if someone wins that match, they win that group, and that's big then in the draw.
Did you find that rule for us, Gary?
Yeah, no, sorry. So it's only if the team. So if the teams are playing each other, it goes to penalty shootout. If they haven't played each other, then it goes to like disciplinary record.
Okay, the standard, like what
they
we
have to be playing each other in the last game for it to go.
So there's a few groups where that's perfectly plausible, like Ukraine, Austria in Group C play on the last day. Croatia, Scotland. So if England beat Croatia in the first match, Croatia and Scotland will be battling out there in the last one of that group. For third place, I don't see it happening in Group E. F is Portugal, France. So I mean, if I've underestimated Germany and they're the group winners, and they win their first two games, Portugal and France could have that on the last day as well. They play in the third round. What else do we have? No. Russia, Denmark in Group E. There's actually a few scenarios. Switzerland.
You mentioned Turkey, Switzerland, yeah.
Yeah, I just got back up to that one. Yeah, that could be another one where it happens.
Yeah.
I went through the groups in a completely random order there, Slats. Apologies.
Yeah, because you started on. I was like, he skipped this one, but yeah.
Yeah. EDC, FBA, something like that. So I think whatever combinations of teams come out of those groups, I'd say we're all fairly aligned. Who are your quarterfinalists, Gary? Or maybe your semi-finalists? Say if you're rattling off too many teams. Presuming that there's no kind of way that this cancels each other out and it's not physically possible, but just who are your four semi-finalists in an open draw format?
I don't really have a strong opinion. I haven't mapped it out in my wall chart.
Get off the fence.
No, I haven't done it in a wall chart. I think England are going to do well. I think they'll get to the semis. I think France will get to the semis. And it's any other two really. Belgium do all right. Yeah, I haven't mapped it out though, to be honest.
I'd say for me,
calling out yours here, LB, but would yours result in it being Italy, Belgium, France, and Portugal?
Close. So Italy, Belgium would meet in my version in the quarter final, and I'm going to go bold. I like Italy. As
two group winners, they meet, or have you something with Turkey topping that group? Or
no, as the two group winners.
Okay.
Check my calculations here, but the winner of Group B, and the winner of Group A will meet in the first quarter final.
Oof.
So I think Belgium, it's a big game. I think Belgium come of age in this tournament. I think they beat Italy. I kind of like Italy to go all the way, and it's like the other one, like the English group. If they come second, it could nearly be a bit of a benefit. You could get somebody like Russia, Netherlands, and you could go that route, and then they could play Portugal in a battle of the defences, then in the semi-final the other way around. But I think if they go, that's why I might back Italy to win it if they go that route. I think the likelihood is they win their group. They play Belgium in the quarterfinals and lose. I think it's too early in the competition for Italy's experience to pay dividends, and Belgium will still not really feel the pressure that they might feel later on.
So who ends up in the fourth in that semi-final then? Netherlands?
Yeah, Portugal, Netherlands. So I have France, Belgium in the first one, and I've got Portugal, Netherlands in the other semi-final. The teams down the other end, Spain. I think England go out to Portugal earlier on. I think Spain will struggle outside of the groups. Turkey, Russia, they'll do well to get that far, but I don't see them struggling. The more experienced teams down there.
And if you were to throw one of the kind of outsider teams to sneak in there, like, do you see anyone? I think Denmark have an okay path that they could make. Certainly a quarterfinal. I'm not sure who they'd meet on that journey. Like there's a lot of possibilities once you go beyond that. Yeah,
my version, they'll end up playing Spain in the round of 16. It's not inconceivable that they beat Spain, but I think at early Spain probably still have the strength to do them. And then the next round is probably England or Portugal. I would probably say Yeah, I don't know if
it's hard to see them getting past that, really. Yeah.
Yeah, but unless they come second in their group and then they're up at the other end of the competition where they could be playing Turkey if Turkey are group winners instead of Italy. There's a huge amount of variety in there. So, do you have an opinion on the winner, Slats?
I was trying to look. I mean, I think we're all in agreement that England tend to be overpriced, underpriced.
Underpriced, yeah.
Underpriced. They're, they're backed in a lot further than they should be, and them going into the tournament favourites is never going to be value. So you'd be immediately discounting going near England, and then your second and third favourites, obviously look pretty strong. France and Belgium. I kind of be leaning toward Belgium. Maybe I just think they have a solid squad and an okay, a grand group and a potentially okay path to get them far.
If they win in Russia on the first game, they can kind of rotate as well. They could have a very fresh squad when it gets to the knockout rounds.
Yeah. So I it's not exactly a long shot. I did think Croatia seemed a good price at 25-1. It just seems like with Denmark 22-1. Croatia just, I don't know, they just feel like they're further out than they should be, but I don't have any real expectation that they're going to win the thing.
Yeah, but again, they're one with, we both expect, or we all expect them to probably start a bit slow, lose to England, finish second in that group. They're playing probably probably playing Poland in the next round. I mean, that's a very winnable game for them. Now you're into the semi-finals, or the quarterfinals.
Quarters, yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, then
3 games.
They got to the World Cup final the last time out, so they'll have the experience for it, So I wouldn't write them off. I do like the draw that they've got.
There's nobody else that I really thought jumped out. Odds-wise, look good. Like Spain don't look great value at 7-1. Italy are okay at 15-2. Germany, I wouldn't be going there at 15-2. I can't see Portugal winning back-to-back Euros 9-1.
Italy are in from 9s. They were 9s only last week. My theory on Italy, I'm not going to back them now because I think if they win their group, if they beat Turkey in the first game, they'll win the group, and that's actually a more difficult draw for them. They're up at the top with probably potentially France, definitely Belgium. I think if they come second in that group, they're down at the other end with the likes of Russia and the Netherlands. So I think if they don't beat Turkey, they'll probably drift. But I actually think I'd be happier to back them at that point. Then.
Yeah.
So
if they do
beat Turkey, I'm going to them off.
Italy do have that, that once they get to the knockouts, like any individual match, you'd nearly lean toward them to win. But will they go all the way? Will they, win those successive matches to get into a final and win it? I don't know.
Nobody's going to want to face them, but I think again, I could see an Italy match going to penalties that way, and I could just look at the draw down when it goes to penalties. I actually think the bookies have been quite tight in this market.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't think there's any value in England at 4-1. Like France at 5-1 is a decent bet. I've been flip-flopping between France and Belgium for the last week or so. I don't see any value in Spain at 7s. 15-2 on Italy is tight enough. Wouldn't back it with a free bet. Germany at 15-2. Portugal 9-1 seems like value.
I like Portugal.
25-1 is tempting. Turkey at 60-1 is, if you're looking for a little bit of value on an outside bet, they could give you a run for the money. But I think it's between France and Belgium, and I'm landing on France.
Yeah. I'm looking at it here. France are 9-2 with some bookies. They're inside. They're even tighter than England are. I don't understand some of the odds further down. Like you said, Turkey, Gary, they're 50-1 with Bet365, as are Ukraine, and Russia are 66. And I think Turkey are a good bit ahead of those guys, for example. I like the Netherlands at 12s with Bet365 wedged in there between Italy and Denmark. And I think the way the draw looks for them, I think they could be getting into a situation where they're playing Portugal in the semi-final and it's the first tough match that they've had. So I think there's a bit of value in them there. If I'm going to back them, I'm going to back them before the thing kicks off, because once it goes in, very winnable games in their group. I don't see how they tighten at any stage. And like we said, if the groups kind of line up the way we expect, or obviously there's huge variety there, it could be a very easy draw for them. So I like the Netherlands at 12s. But they're missing some of their main players at the same time, so it's tough to say. You going to back anyone, Slats? Outright?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to go at the outright market. I'll go with the winner top goal scorer doubles, because it just gives such great value. Like even if you fancy France and you go France with Benzema, it's 20-1. But I kind of like the idea of going with trying to pick your top goal scorer of a team who make the semi-final or maybe the final, but not actually win it. So like if you were to go with France and Lukaku, it's 50-1. France and Kane is even 33-1. So like, kind of mix up your. Don't
see Kane. I wouldn't be going after Kane because I think Croatia, Scotland, they're tough group games for them. Like Belgium, I think have a much easier group. I kind of even thought about somebody from a completely left field team like the Netherlands to be the top scorer, because if you're going on the goals being scored in the group and maybe around the 16, I've just figured out what my notes were that I couldn't read properly, and I think it could be Netherlands, Scotland in the round of 16. I think the Scotland, if they get that far, they'll sort of peak too soon. They'll have had their emotional games, in Hampden Park and Wembley, and they'll play the Netherlands and they'll get outsmarted in the round of 16. And then I think so you could have the Netherlands getting through to, say, Portugal in the semi-finals without really having had to beat anyone good, but racking up a lot of goals along the way. So I don't know who I'd pick, but I wouldn't wouldn't discount Portugal for a lot of goals either. Sorry, Netherlands. Apologies.
Netherlands, yeah. I mean, I suppose you're kind of looking like the recent tournaments. It's only kind of 3, 4, or 5 goals has been enough to win it. I mean, if you're 3, you're certainly going to be splitting it, and your odds are going to be affected by that. But I think 4 has won it outright, and 5 certainly will. So even if you just have the likes of North Macedonia in Netherlands group, they just put up one big score there, somebody gets a hat-trick or even a brace, and they're halfway to being top goal scorer anyway. It's definitely a way to look at, to kind of focus in on the group stage, and they could certainly be well underway to the Golden Boot without getting anywhere near the final.
Looking at it here, their top goal scorer for their team, like Memphis Depay is 9-4. And then Luke de Jong is 9-2, and then everybody else is the next up is Wijnaldum at 8-1. The rest of them then are all double digits, so it's quite open. I think Depay there is actually quite a good price for the Netherlands top goal scorer. Like you said, if 4 or 5 is winning it outright, 3 should be enough for him to get it in just for his own team and with that group
within the squad.
What about Yilmaz of Turkey? So, we're all saying, or we've all said that Turkey score a lot of goals, and we fancy him to be a surprise package. I seen 50-1 earlier. Probably be able to get 66s on him to be top goal scorer. But when you look at his goal scoring record at club level, it's fairly impressive. He's playing for Lille there this season, 16 goals in 23 appearances. When he was playing in Turkey, he was banging in the goals. So for Besiktas, 24 and 39 games. For Trabzonspor, 28 goals in 31 games. And then for Galatasaray, he had 65 and 95 games. So he's coming off a season where they've won the league with teams that are attacking. The group there, Wales' defence isn't great, I don't think. Obviously, he might struggle to score against Italy. Switzerland, you could see him getting a goal if he gets through then and plays second place, gets a lucky draw in the round of 16, potentially gets a couple more goals. I could see him getting 3 or 4 goals anyway.
Yeah.
And that will put him up there. It just goes then how far Turkey go. So it wouldn't be a thing where you'd be backing him as your main bet, but he might be a better bet to finish top goal scorer each way than Turkey would be to win the Euros.
Yeah. Actually, I like the logic there for sure.
I think there's potential for a Spanish top goal scorer as well. I don't know, would you go with maybe Torres, or who would you fancy for Spain?
My worry with Spain is that they have the bit of the kind of Man Cities about them, and it seems they'll score 3 or 4 goals. It'll be 3 or 4 different scores
spread across.
Yeah. One actually I forgot to say, it was Portugal, right? We've been talking about Ronaldo. He's a little bit out of sorts. Pirlo didn't play things to his style really at Juve. He's actually paid the price for that with his job, and Ronaldo wasn't the star man for them at the last Euros. Like, he's even money, or 11-10 to be the Portuguese top goal scorer, right? But you've got but again, if he's not fully fit, he might not play all the games. Like, Jota's 11-2 for that. He's the second favorite. I think that's not that much of a stretch. Ronaldo has a tendency to be getting man-marked in games as well. People, they'll see him and he'll attract the defenders. I think Jota, if he plays off him, I think 11-2 is a big price for him to be the Portuguese top goal scorer. Someone that jumped out at me.
Yeah, I'm just looking. I mean, he like Ronaldo did have 11 in the qualifying stages. I don't even see Jota like 6 pages down on the list here, so he certainly didn't have more than 2.
Yeah, I don't think he played a huge amount.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been that too.
It's just you're saying 11, like, that's the thing. It won't be a number like that. It could be 2 or 3 that does it, So
yeah,
that's an interesting one. Another thing that I hadn't thought about, I'll actually look through it, and is there kind of top goal scorers for teams that we don't expect to go very far? So they might pick up, 2 goals could be enough for them to get their nation's top scorer, and then they get knocked out in the group stages. Could be an interesting angle.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like the kind of the odds that you can get on not picking the obvious choice for a team. One of my the earlier bets in my betting history back in the 2008 Euros, I think maybe the favorite winner top goal scorer combo was Spain and Fernando Torres, and Spain and David Villa was 80-1, and like, the two of those kind of, it's not like, Villa was playing real deep and Torres was guaranteed to be the scorer. It was going to be one of those, whoever it just landed on in front of the goal.
Yeah.
As far as I could see it between them. And back to the 80-1, which I can remember putting €2 on it, and being delighted with my 160 quid win on it. Like, I'd only started in our old office back then. I remember telling Healy that I'd won the bet. Like, I'd only started at this stage, didn't really know anyone in the office, and he was like, initially impressed, and then I said, like, yeah, he, asked how much was on it, 2 quid, and he was absolutely disgusted with me that he saw it as like, a lost opportunity more than 160 quid gained. But I was pretty proud of that call back then, anyway.
Yeah, they're great when you get those kind of ones right, and especially if he gets a few early goals, makes such a difference. Speaking of those type of bets, do you have any kind of novelty bets, lads, that you're looking at, or kind of, bookie specials or things like that are a little bit of combinations of slightly obscure markets?
Yeah, so just before we move off that mark, like I Slash called it out early in passing, but I actually really fancy the Lukaku top goal scorer France double. It was 66-1 last week. Then the 50s now, I still think it's decent value at 50s. Should get a decent one out of it. So I'll probably back an outsider like Yilmaz for Turkey in the direct goal, the top goal scorer market. But I'm going to do the France and Lukaku double definitely at 50-1 now. So that should
another one that, like, just when I was looking at that kind of stood out as a bit of value would just be Italy to win, because we were talking about Italy. Even if they win, you still wouldn't be expecting them to have the top score. I think
they'll win with 6 goals, 6 different scorers.
Had a golden boot in any Euros was when it was shared by about 6 people. Balotelli had 3 goals, and shared it with a number of others, and that's the only time Italy have even shared the Golden Boot. But Italy to win and Lukaku to be top scorer is 125 to 1.
Nice.
Which I just like that combo because, for that reason, that Italy probably won't have the Golden Boot even if they were to win the tournament. And then you're looking at where else would it go to. Lukaku seems a reasonable shout.
Yeah, I hadn't looked. I don't know what the odds are. I haven't checked them. It's kind of come to me more recently. But Lewandowski to be the top scorer is actually one that I'm going to look at as well in some of those, because Sweden and Slovakia, there's could put a lot of goals past them, and then it's actually quite potentially relatively easy round of 16 game for them as well after. So they could rack up quite a few goals before eventually getting knocked out and somebody else winning it. So
what's funny with Lewandowski is I have him here, right? The combined odds for him to be top scorer and France to win, him to be top scorer and England to win, or him to be top scorer and Poland to win are all the same, which seems very strange. I mean, it's 175 to 1 for each of them, but surely it's far more likely for him to be top scorer and France to win than him to be top scorer and Poland to win.
You think that?
Very strange.
He's really big in single in the actual low market itself, like 25 to 1 is decent for him, But I agree with you that's it's a weird differential or lack of differential between those.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I mean, I can't see Poland going on to win the tournament, even if he scores 7 or 8 goals. You still wouldn't expect Poland to be winning.
Yeah. So we were about to move on there to some of the more sort of combo bets and specials in obscure markets. So do you have anything picked out, Gary, that you like to look of, any bookie specials?
Well, there's one that I really like to look of, which is it's a really mug bet, but I mean, I can't think of any more entertainment than cheering on corners throughout the 50 years old games in the tournament. So Betfair have 560 or more corners in the tournament, priced up at 16 to 1. So I'll have a small bet off that and just be cheering on the corners in all the games. So that's a fairly sad thing to do, but as you said, it's novelty. It'll be small money, but it will give me an interest. I actually think 60 to 1 is quite big because we worked it out before we came on air, and we're looking at an average of around 11 corners per game, which isn't beyond the realms of possibility. There'll be some games that'll have 14 or 15 and others that'll have 6 or 7. So
you'll get to the final and you'll be just hanging on. It'll have like 17 left to go, and you'll be hoping for the cagiest final of all time.
Yeah. As we said, it just has excludes penalty shootout. So that if that's there, I assume that extra time is included. Yeah. So they get extra time, and then in tournament football, especially in the knockouts, you get a lot more of teams going to the corner, and those type of corners that come from you go to the corner, they kick it off, a player goes out, and they do that again. So, it is a mug bet. I'm not saying that it's a banker of the tournament to go and put your house on it, but if you're looking for a tournament that isn't going to be over after the first week, you're always in with a shout of it. So, and it could be actually a really good bet if the first couple of games start with loads of corners. So, I'm going to do that. There was another one that kind of stuck out to me at 50 to 1, which again it's a little bit of a pot shot, but Portugal to reach the final, which as can use the NLB, they're kind of underrated team and coming under the radar, so they could definitely reach the final. England to win their group, which again is likely, and Lukaku to be top goal scorer. That a treble at 50 to 1, which
it's very good.
Individually, you could see them all. I'll have to look at it and see what Portugal are to reach the final and stuff like that. But I think, again, for an interest that will get you the whole tournament, Belgium are going to get through, England should get through, Portugal should get through their group. So you're going to get into the knockouts with that bet anyway.
Portugal are 9 to 2 to reach the final.
9 to 2. Yeah, so it's probably it's probably priced up about right on the treble, so 50-1. But yeah, I think that the two of those are the bets that stick out in kind of novelty markets that you could back and have a bit of a laugh, like, you know. So.
Yeah, I've just when you were talking about those, Gary, I just checked up some of the Lewandowski top goal scorer. Italy to win Lewandowski is 275-1. I'm not sure if you said that before, it was Gary or Slats, but I missed it if you did. I think I'm going to back that for sure. I like Lewandowski more the more I look at that Group E. But in terms of
like he could put up plenty against Slovakia and Sweden anyway without doing any more in the tournament.
Yeah. In terms of the novelty bets, I don't have any picked out yet. I'm kind of still looking at them. They're very hard to decide because loads of them actually look good. So I don't know which ones I'm actually going to jump on.
Yeah, they've like these days. Even 4 years ago, it was such a smaller market, and the kind of they have these odds on that or what odds, Paddy or whatever. The different bookies have their own kind of novelty bets. There's so many you could spend all day looking at the different bookies novelty bets available, which I enjoy doing, but it's hard to kind of really pick a few out that you feel very strongly about.
Yeah, the highest scoring team, right? They all seem to be at the top of that market: England, Spain, Belgium, France, right? Italy seems, oddly enough, is up there. But there's some teams further down: Netherlands, Portugal, even Croatia are 40-1. Like some of the teams could get, certainly with kind of easy enough groups. Poland are 125-1 to be the top scoring team. Now, okay, if they don't go far, they're massively handicapped. But rack up a big score in the group, go up against a kind of an obliging team in the round of 16. The latter stages are often quite cagey, so I think 125-1 is huge there. But in the real adventurous specials, I don't have any of them just yet.
One more that, I mean, again, you're asking for a bit, but if you think England are the real deal, and if you think about backing them at 4-1, this might interest you. And the same with Belgium and France. If you think the three of those teams are good, the three of those to score 14 or more goals in the tournament, like each, is 90-1. So if you're fancying one of them to, blow away their group, or them good teams to blow away their groups, obviously France is the dodgy one there. But it might, again, it's something that will keep you interested for the whole tournament. 14 is probably a little high. I think they'll all get 10 anyway. But it's something that you get the whole tournament out of. You're more than likely going to see those teams gets the quarters and the semis. So you're just hoping for to rack up a few goals along the way. 90-1. Again, if you're looking for just a bit of banter and a couple of quid on a bet, maybe that's a good one. I'll do a bit of research into it and try and justify it myself, but just sticks out on something that it could be a bit of value in.
Yeah. So moving on then to the player of the tournament. I kind of have a left field pick here myself for this one. So I'm not sure if either of you have any thoughts on who the player of the tournament is going to be.
I actually have a left field. Well, I don't think it's left field, but I'm thinking if France are going to win the tournament, Conte is going to play a big role. And
okay, well, he's the favourite, so I was actually going to go with Benzema.
I was thinking Benzema as well. He's like 33-1.
33-1. Mbappe hasn't looked right since about Christmas. He's had niggling injuries. I think the fact that they've brought Benzema in, I think he's in form. Yeah, exactly. I think he's going to be bigged up a lot. I think he does come up with kind of clutch goals for Real Madrid. Mbappe, I'm a huge fan of Mbappe. I just think that France are going to.
Kante, don't you?
Oh, you said Kante. I thought you said Mbappe. Yeah, sorry.
That's why I said his favourite. I was like, no, he's not.
No, Kante. I like Kante. He's a great player. I think,
albeit his mind made up before you spoke, Gary. He was just like,
I know. Yeah, he was just shooting me down.
I'm going to get to my pick.
I just thought he said Mbappe. I was like, that's such a soft pick. Yeah, Kante's a great shot. Did he get it in the World Cup? Was he player of the tournament? I think he was. I think he was player of the tournament at the last World Cup.
Could have been, yeah. But he's 66-1. I just think he makes the team tick. And I think it might be a decent bet.
Who selects it? How is it picked, the player of the tournament? Do you know? Like, is it just some board within UEFA, some vote that goes on? behind the scenes, is there any public vote put to it, or
it's not public anyway?
Captains of all teams, no? But
it's the captains of each of the teams, is it?
Yeah, I thought it was the captains of each of the teams.
But I was wrong, by the way, about the World Cup. It was actually Luka Modric got best player of the World Cup, and Mbappe got best young player. Kante wasn't involved at all, so not sure why I thought that. Maybe he was the French player of the competition. I agree with you, Gary. I mean, I think Kante's one, even though he's highly rated, I still think he's massively underrated in what he brings to any team, especially France, the way they play and the way they set up with him. I just don't think they give it to those type of players in this day and age. It's always to the goal scorers or, certainly a forward type player. So I would imagine it's going to go to somebody up front. And if you think France are going to go far, but I think if France are going to win it, it's got to realistically be a finalist. I think it's going to be, Benzema 33 is a big price.
Yeah, I just think, there'll be a lot of kind of spotlight. He'll be talked about a lot, just his return and everything. So if it goes well for him, it seems very likely. And, if France win the thing, then it kind of nearly has to have gone well for him,
Yeah.
I think that he's definitely more value than the likes of Griezmann, etc. But do you think he's going to play would be as in, I know he'll get game time, but like Giroud has done well for France, and I don't know whether there might be a bit of loyalty there to play him, even Giroud, in the first 2 games.
Just thinking about it though, I mean, like the politics of even bringing him into the squad was so big. And he's a divisive figure in French football. You're not bringing him to float around the dressing room. He is brought to play. And Giroud, Giroud's probably my favorite player of the last few years. And he's just not played enough. You're not starting Giroud against Germany in that match because he's, I don't know how many minutes he's racked up in the last 6 months, but not enough to be starting against Germany in Munich. We said Mbappe's not been in the greatest form. Griezmann is in probably his worst ever form. And then you've got Benzema, who's probably in his best form of the last 5 years. So I think Benzema starts for France up front against Germany game 1. I think Giroud is going to be a bench player, come on and do very well. Like I think I'd play him, but I'd have played him throughout the season as well. I just think it's such a big game to start someone who's not been playing is a tough one. If you're starting him up front on his own, if you're playing him with Benzema, who knows? But I don't think so. I agree. The other French forwards are very, very low prices. I wouldn't be going near them. Not sure if you was going to ask if you've had any kind of defensive-minded players, Gary. You've obviously already answered that. Did anyone else jump out to you, Slats, in that market?
Well, no. That was what, of the kind of wider odds or the kind of middle-ish odds. Definitely look good. Like I think De Bruyne I think Belgium will do well, and De Bruyne is the kind of obvious one there. But like he's second favorite, 9-1. Doesn't seem great value for him, but he is that sort of position. Like he racks up plenty of goals for midfielder and plenty of assists too. So like he's a real kind of match winner, man of the match kind of player. And he'll definitely have a big. If Belgium were to go on and win or even get to the final, he'll have a big role in their success. But I don't think 9-1 is really worth getting on him for that.
And what about then young player of the tournament? Sure, you got a few probably lined up, Gary.
Yeah, I think Ferran Torres will have a big tournament. But whether Spain will get far along for him to get it, he's 9-1. I think he could be a decent bet. Again, with Italy, Barella might be a decent shout. Again, if Italy can get deep into the tournament, I think Barella's going to be important to them. But I think it's hard to look by Foden and Mount. Like Mount's been superb the last kind of 8 months for Chelsea, and Foden has just been electric this season for City. And I think he's gone to a different level this year. He's doing it in Champions League. He's doing it in key Premier League games. Again, I think it comes back to if Southgate takes the kind of shackles off the team, plays the attacking team with, giving the likes of Foden and Grealish like kind of free rein to go and be creative. I think England will do well. You could probably get England winning the tournament, Harry Kane like top scorer and the player of the tournament, and Foden young player of the tournament. I actually think England could be that good if they went kind of gung ho, but I don't think that'll happen. So I'd like to back Foden at 72, but it's probably a little bit skinny.
Just slightly off on a tangent, but you say you think England could be that good. Like, not to be in any way flippant about it, but what makes you think they could be that good? I mean, I haven't seen a match from them, I'd say, in 5 years. Certainly 4, where I thought, wow, they look good.
Well, they've been playing a lot of teams where there's no real win, sort of like upside for them. Like, they're going out and they're playing second or third rate teams. Like, they had a piss easy qualifying group and they did it really comfortably. Whereas I think in the past you would have found that they'd struggle in a few of those games.
I mean, even if I'm thinking back to the Nations League, like they played Belgium at the end of last year, played off the park, lost 2-0. They played one of the Scandinavian teams, Denmark, maybe they lost to them last year as well.
I think that's more how they set up. So that's it. I think if they set up the way they did in those games, which is a defensive attitude, like, in that, like, if you're leaving like 2 or 3 of the likes of Sancho, Grealish, Foden on the bench, like, you're not going to win tournaments, that way. I think their best way of winning this tournament is to go out and put down a marker and go, we're going to win this. And like, if you think back to like, I remember the World Cup semi-final against Croatia, and they were up in that game, and then they were playing like 2 centre midfielders who absolutely shot themselves, like Henderson in particular. If you look at what he did in the last kind of 50 minutes of that game, every time he got the ball, he just hoofed it. Like, it wasn't a pass to a player. It was just, I'm getting this ball as far away from me as possible.
But I kind of think that's their level, to be quite honest about it. Like, they drew, we talked about it a week ago, back over the schedule they had in that World Cup, and they drew with Colombia, and then they beat them on penalties, which obviously, to beat them on penalties is a kind of a monkey off the back for England. But they beat Tunisia, Panama, lost to Belgium, drew with Colombia, beat Sweden, lost to Croatia, lost to Belgium again, then in the 3rd place. I mean, when they play the top teams, they don't beat them.
They do have, I like, John, I can't argue with that because they do have it to prove. But I think that they have a very talented young group of players who, like, if they click in the tournament, they could just, they could actually take it by storm. But they need to get off to a good start and they need to use their strengths. So I said there are weaknesses, and we talked about goalkeeper and things like that before. I do think that's a weakness. But I think that they've got a lot of weapons up front as well. You've got Kane, you've got Calvert-Lewin. There's different styles there. I don't think any team will want to play England. Let's put it that way. I
don't know. I'd go the other. I'd say no one have any fear playing them. I mean,
no, I don't think so. I think they're a dangerous team to play against these days if they play the right team. They play the right starting 11.
Right. We won't go down the rabbit hole anyway. We'll leave it there.
Any other odds from earlier on of who was it you said were getting 0 points in the group?
Finland. I haven't given it a moment's thought. I'll come back to you on it because I haven't even given it one more thought. I don't think Finland get any points in that group. Who was it? Belgium, Denmark, and Russia. Maybe they draw with Denmark. I don't even see that. But any final bets to wrap up, guys, or anything in particular you're looking forward to getting into?
No, that's it. I said I'm looking forward to my corners bet, and I'm looking forward to cheering on Lukaku on all the Belgian games. So that would be good for me.
Yeah, I had a just for the group winners. So, like, if you combine Italy, Belgium, England, and Spain, it's a little shy of 4-1.
I like that.
Yeah, I think they all seem pretty reliable. I know we've talked about potential upsets there, and it's really Belgium at 5-6 that are getting the best value there. The others are 1-2, 1-3, and 1-4. But yeah, it seems pretty likely to me. And you get a bit of value out of that across the group stages, unless one of them goes to pieces and loses the first 2 games or something. But that's going to be my initial bet for the group stage anyway.
All right, and to wrap it up then, winner, top goal scorer, player, and young player. I'm going to go Portugal to win. Player of the tournament is Benzema. Top goal scorer is Lewandowski, and young player of the tournament is Barella. They're my 4.
Well, I'll go France. Lukaku being my main bet for top goal scorer, but I will have an outside bet on Yilmaz. For player of the tournament, I'm going to go Kante 66-1 and hope that the judges see how much he brings to the team. And for young player, I can't really see by Foden if he gets let off the loose or off the leash. So.
I'll go Belgium to win, and I'll stick with Lukaku for top goal scorer, which would kind of lead to De Bruyne. Like I said, I do fancy Benzema, but I'll stick Belgium here and go De Bruyne, player of the tournament, and then Felix, young player, just mainly because a lot of those likely ones, a lot of them are with England. There's a couple there with Germany and Spain, none of which I really see going far in the tournament. So, Portugal.
I think he's a good shot at that as well. To be honest, he's a good.
Yeah, he's he's just won La Liga there, and he's promising young player, but with a team that could go far. So that's
right.
What I'll place with.
Well, that's a wrap. We'll be back on the stream, and we'll have plenty more Euros content up on the site as well before the competition is on and throughout the competition. So make sure to keep an eye on sportsrundown.com. If you've enjoyed the show tonight, make sure to like and subscribe, and let us know what your thoughts are. We love the interaction around bets or just predictions. Either way, we'd love to have the chats with you. So, have a good evening, and hopefully you're looking forward to the competition as much as we are. And take care.
Nice one.
Cheers.